What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's second stimulus check update, stimulus package update, and stimulus news report for late Saturday, November 28th. There has been a lot of talk about stimulus. There's been a lot of talk about what's going to happen, who's going to win the Senate, and so on and so forth. We have heard that there is no stimulus checks coming, as well as stimulus checks are a for sure thing. We've also heard multiple times the stimulus package is going to be for $500 billion and no more. But then on the other hand, we've heard from other people saying it's going to be for at least $2 trillion. Well, what is it going to be? Well, today I have some unexpected news and it just came out today, that I want to bring to you so that you are well aware of what's currently going on. This could really change how stimulus negotiations unfold over the next few weeks, so I want you to be well aware of this. Based on a couple of reports, a few that came out today and a bunch that came out just recently, a handful of Democrats are urging Nancy Pelosi to not, I repeat, to not negotiate with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. They are saying, these reports are saying that these handful of Democrats are telling Nancy Pelosi not to negotiate and to wait until after January 5th to see what happens. And this is said to be done because as of right now, there's a bunch of fighting amongst the GOP. And right now, this is causing Republicans in Georgia to just want to boycott the entire Georgia Senate runoff election on January 5th. If this happens, and Republicans in Georgia boycott the entire election whatsoever, nobody votes, and I'm pretty sure some Republicans will vote, but if a handful, a bunch, let's say thousands of Republicans do not vote, there is a potential opportunity for Democrats to take and get both seats from Georgia, both Senate seats, which would then put them at a 50-50 split in the Senate, which means Kamala Harris would be the tiebreaker, which means Democrats would now have the majority in the Senate. It is being reported that if Democrats, again, this is just what reports are saying, but this is all what I've been reading, what I've been researching is all extremely possible, and it's very true based on what people have been saying during interviews and what these reports are stating. But the reason why Democrats are telling Nancy Pelosi that right now it's not a good time to pass a stimulus package, but it would be a good idea to pass an extension of certain benefits. Because what they don't want to have happen is Democrats don't want to pass a stimulus bill for, let's say, $500 billion or even $1 trillion. Because that's going to make Democrats look weak, like they folded and just accepted what Republicans were offering. That could happen. Now, Republicans would get the slight edge in that instance. That's if the Republicans in Georgia decide, you know what, we need to go and vote. We need to vote for our Republican senators so that they win the Senate. That's if that happens. But the same goes for Republicans. They do not want to go and accept a, let's say, $1.5 trillion stimulus package when for months they've been saying, no, that's too much. We do not support that. We are not going to support that. We need to pass something at $500 billion or maybe $1 trillion. Well, if Republicans, and specifically Mitch McConnell and President Trump, decide, you know what, the American people need some relief, let's go ahead and pass a $1.2 trillion stimulus package. If this happens, then Democrats would be seen as the slight victor here because they got Republicans to come up off their $500 billion offer. Well, if this happens, Republicans would then look weak. So this is another form of more posturing amongst our leaders. And they're posturing for Georgia. Again, all eyes are on Georgia. That's where everyone's looking at this point. Now, the reason why this story is so important, again, and when I say story, I'm not saying the reports. That's not the story. The story is the whole thing. The reports are just a small subsection of the entire story, which is all eyes are on Georgia at this point. But the reason why this story is so important to keep an eye on is because Nancy Pelosi already stated right after the election, the November 3rd election, that she didn't pass a stimulus package, not because she didn't want to help out the American people. She didn't pass a stimulus package before the November 3rd election in order to prevent President Trump from seeing a small win prior to the election, which could have ultimately led to a big win of him being reelected. What we know right now, based on the numbers, again, whether the numbers are right or wrong, who knows, but based on the numbers right now, President Trump didn't lose by a lot. He was very close in some of these races. So if Nancy Pelosi would have accepted a stimulus package, let's say for $1.9 trillion, this would have been a small win for President Trump. And because of that, he could have won the entire election without contesting any states. So it's looking like Nancy Pelosi is doing this once again. And I called this before, that if things were close, Nancy Pelosi would ultimately do whatever she could to prevent President Trump from getting reelected. And once we figured out that it all came down to Georgia, I called this a few weeks ago, that Nancy Pelosi was going to have a hard time accepting a stimulus package and pointing fingers at President Trump and pointing fingers at Mitch McConnell saying, Republicans, you're the reason why there's no stimulus for the American people. Now, for the short-sighted term, for short-term stimulus, this is bad. This is very bad. Americans need help right now. They can't wait. They are not getting any additional stimulus in the term of especially large stimulus like unemployment or stimulus checks. Some are receiving some small stimulus through their states, cities, and counties. Some states like New Mexico are planning on giving an additional stimulus check. Colorado is doing the exact same thing. Orange County, Florida did $1,000 stimulus checks just a week or so ago. So some cities, counties, and states are helping out, but not in the sense that it's going to help out pretty much every single person inside the United States. However, at this point, there is something that President Trump could do, and this would be through multiple executive orders. I've been saying this for a little while. There is not a lot President Trump can do with executive orders as far as handing out stimulus checks, providing more PPP funding for small businesses, providing relief for restaurants and the airlines. He can't do a whole lot there as to pretty much giving blank checks away or even a $1,200 stimulus check to the American people. But he could do executive orders, and I'm going to mention the executive orders in just a second, but he could do these executive orders right before the end of this year. What this means is even though, right now we're on November 28th, Congress comes back on November 30th in 2 days back to Washington, back to Capitol Hill, and start doing whatever they do when they're at work. But that still leaves an entire month where we're in limbo. We have no clue what's going on. But here is what is currently being talked about. And this is something that could happen, and this is something that President Trump could do, that Democrats are telling Nancy Pelosi, try to urge this onto, or try to pass this type of stimulus, because this will actually help everybody and it would help our party the most. And that is pretty much there's three major fiscal cliffs coming up in December. And that's actually on December 31st. First, we have the eviction moratorium through the CDC. That ends on December 31st. We also have the federal student loan deferral program. That ends on December 31st. We also have unemployment for self-employed and gig workers. That ends as well. Now, there's more programs that ends on December 31st as well. However, I'm just going to stick with these three because these are kind of the main ones at this point. But President Trump could do 3 executive orders to fix all 3 of these issues. He could. It gets very simple, and I don't think he'd see any backlash because of this, but he could do an executive order for the extension of the eviction moratorium through the CDC, and he could do this through January 31st. So pretty much just kick the can down the road about 31 days. 1 month. He could do this. And it would provide some relief. It would provide a lot of people a little bit of, they wouldn't be so stressed that they're going to be kicked out of their apartment or home come January 1st. it would help out many people, millions of people actually. He also could do an executive order for the extension of federal student loan deferrals and the payments through January 31st as well. He honestly could push this back months. But most people expect that if he's only going to do an executive order, or if Congress is just going to pass a stimulus package that includes extensions, it would most likely only be extended about 1 to 2 months. Most people are saying, most experts are predicting it would only go back about 31 days, because then that would mean Joe Biden would then be in office, and it would be on him to then go and do another executive order or have Congress pass some type of comprehensive stimulus package, or, as Mitch McConnell says, a skinny bill. And then the third one is President Trump could provide an executive order for the extension of unemployment benefits for self-employed and gig workers as well. What you need to understand about this is that President Trump, just keep this in mind, that President Trump would most likely only provide extensions. That's all it would. It would only be an extension of these programs. He would not be providing any funding. For example, for unemployment, yes, self-employed and gig workers, initially, they got the $600 per week bonus on top of their unemployment benefits, their state unemployment benefits. And because of this, they were obviously making pretty good money. But what President Trump could do is just do an executive order for the extension of these programs and not provide any like bonus. So the only difference would be these people that are self-employed would continue to get their state unemployment benefits, but as far as a $300 per week bonus, $600 per week bonus, or whatever, that wouldn't be there for both self-employed through and gig workers, or the unemployed that had previous 9-to-5 jobs. So it is a good thing. It would provide a lot of relief, but like I was saying, it wouldn't provide any bonus to the income that they were receiving. So now I know one of the questions that a lot of people are going to ask, so I just want to address this here. But the question I know people are going to ask is, what does all this mean for stimulus checks? Does this mean we are going to see a stimulus check? Can President Trump pass a stimulus check? Can President Trump do an executive order on a stimulus check? I've stated this multiple times, and I want to be very clear. President Trump cannot do an executive order on stimulus checks. He cannot do it. The lawyers from the Treasury have already stated President Trump does not have the power, neither does any president have the power to provide stimulus checks without the prior approval of Congress. Congress is the only one that can do this. So if you're mad at President Trump for not sending out stimulus checks because we have $100 billion sitting in an account, don't be mad at President Trump. He cannot do it. It's Congress. It's Congress's fault. President Trump could push a little bit harder to get Congress to pass something, but again, Nancy Pelosi's on the other end of that negotiation table, and she is not going to do anything right now that's going to give President Trump a small win or potentially risk the Senate runoff election in Georgia come January 5th. At least that's what these reports are saying. Now, what does this mean for stimulus checks? I anticipate a stimulus package to pass. I anticipate it's going to happen, and it has a 99.9% chance of passing at some point. At some point. Keywords. At some point. This could happen this week. It's very unlikely. This could happen December 28th. It could happen, again, very unlikely. It could happen between, let's say, January 2nd, which is very unlikely, or it could happen maybe January 6th or January 30th, or it could even happen sometime in April. A stimulus package is going to happen. But again, when it happens, I have no clue. Stimulus checks, I predict that they're roughly about 85% chance of passing. And this is my prediction based off the reports, based off interviews and all that stuff that I've been reading and watching. I say it's 85% because there is still a chance that no stimulus gets passed whatsoever. There's still a chance that Congress cannot come to an agreement because we got Democrats in the House and we have Republicans in the Senate. And then obviously, if Joe Biden's in office, we'd have a Democrat in office, or if President Trump is still the president, we'd have a Republican as the president. Well, there's no one party that holds all the power in that case, in both those cases. So because of this, it's very unlikely that if we can't come to an agreement, or it's very likely if we can't come to an agreement, then stimulus would just keep getting pushed back further and further down the road. And we'd continue to have these talks and negotiations. Now, if this happens, okay, if we don't see stimulus for a while and a vaccine is already being given out and it's working its way through the population, if this happens, I expect, which Mitch McConnell would love this, then expect a very small and extremely narrowly targeted stimulus package to pass at some point. This would most likely provide no stimulus checks. This would most likely provide a little bit of funding for schools, probably nothing for state and local governments, maybe a little bit for unemployment, and it would provide PPP funding. It'd be those three things. My guess is they try to throw in some liability protections and worker protections in there as well. But again, that is not going to be the most important thing. The most important thing at this point for Mitch McConnell is PPP funding. That's it. That's it. PPP funding. Not much, but a little bit. And right now there's roughly $135 billion sitting in the account waiting to go to PPP funding, which if Congress wanted to, they could easily just say, all right, let's do an extension for unemployment. Let's do an extension for the student loan deferral program. Let's do an extension for the eviction moratorium through the CDC. Oh, and on top of that, let's do another round of PPP funding for small businesses. Congress has the power to do that. And it wouldn't require any new money, any new appropriations. It would all be there. They just have to redistribute that money and open up the portal once again. Now, there is still a very good chance that we see a stimulus check included in the next stimulus package. But I don't want to get your hopes up and say it's coming. Because as of right now, we've been waiting 6 months for another stimulus check. Or maybe longer than 7 months. I've lost track now. But we've been waiting months for an additional stimulus check. It hasn't happened yet. I'm still very optimistic and hopeful it does happen because I know it would help out millions of people. But at the same time, I don't want to get your hopes up and saying it's going to happen. Because right now, who knows when it will happen. Multiple reports out over the past few days are also indicating that there is a good chance that a stimulus bill gets included into the government spending bill. I talked about this earlier this morning as well. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, I'll link to that video down below as well. If this happens, don't expect President Trump to step in and do executive orders on anything, for anything. But then again, who knows? Who knows which pieces of legislation would actually be included in the government funding bill? We can only wait and find out when everybody else does. Right now, we have reports out that President Trump wants to pass a stimulus package. He wants to. He wants to send out stimulus checks. He wants to do all this stuff, but it must be the right type of stimulus and for the right amount. If it's for too much or it's the wrong pieces of legislation, he's not going to accept it. He will veto the bill. And in most cases, the Senate would never pass it anyway. The reports indicate that he wants this. And not only does he want this to help out the American people, but he wants this because it would help out his campaign to rerun again once he announces that he is going to rerun for president in 2024. According to The Hill, if President Trump wants to rerun, he can. And he has the support of many Republicans. Right now, it is estimated that about 55% of Republicans would vote for President Trump in the primaries. If President Trump's legal efforts, this is according to The Hill, if President Trump's legal efforts to overturn the 2020 election fail, then he could announce his re-election campaign during the presidential inauguration on January 20th. That would be big. I don't think I've ever seen that. Have you? Let me know down in the comment section below. Have you ever seen a president, and there hasn't been many, but have you ever seen a president announce his re-election campaign on Inauguration Day? I haven't. This would be new. Bloomberg also reported that President Trump will rerun again if his attorneys can't overturn the results of the 2020 election as well. So right now, we can pretty much guess President Trump will rerun if he doesn't win the 2020 election. And right now, it is going to be a game of cat and mouse. Trump wants to provide stimulus. He wants to provide stimulus relief, but he can't afford to look weak if he wants to rerun in 2024. And this is the problem, because at the same time, he can't afford to hurt Americans if his end goal is to get them to vote for him in 2024. So right now, I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, I honestly wish I could say, oh, this is going to happen. This is what we're going to. This is what's going to happen next, so on and so forth. But right now, I don't know. I don't know, because this is new territory. This is very new territory. Usually I try to follow along with elections and what's going on, the economy, and how things are going to progress. But this is new. This is new. I'm always sitting here at my computer trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And right now I can tell you, I have no idea based on all the reports that are coming out. Right now, what I can tell you is that I'm certain stimulus is going to come at some point. But again, when? I don't know. So, as of right now, this is what we know regarding stimulus and the stimulus negotiations. Consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to keep you updated on everything new that comes out. Make sure you go ahead, smash that thumbs up button if you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.